All right, so we're starting here. I'm on the BroadStreet homepage, which is essentially broadstreet.io with a login. So I'm going to sign in now. Right away, what you'll see is that my screen might look a little bit different to yours in the sense that I have some favorite tools and reports that I've favorited, and then also the classic templates of BroadStreet, like the adverse childhood experiences template, infant mortality, area deprivation index, etc. So the first thing you're going to notice is that all of the website is built on cards. These are wizard cards, essentially. So these report cards basically are these little squatty cards that clicking on them essentially leads you through a wizard that helps you to create a storyboard. Now, once you're in that storyboard, you're able to make some edits. So let's start really with some basics of creating a story. I'm actually going to start by creating a story. Let's see, let's start with the food access report. Oh, let's actually do the infant mortality one. All right, so all I did was click on that card. Because it's a wizard card, it's brought me to this wizard here. So essentially right now I can choose if this is for a new area or if I'm going to be using a saved area that I've created in the past. All right, now, because some of you are new to this, I'm going to actually start with a new area. I'm going to just do, I'm going to do a county list. You can also do a zip code list. You can also do a list of places like cities, villages, and towns. Let's start with a county list. Now, Joe, this one's for you. Lincoln, Nebraska. Is it in the county of Lincoln?
Lancaster County.
Lancaster. All right. Great.
There we are.
Okay, so I'm just going to say you can name the area anything that you like. You'll see why that comes in handy later. I'm going to generate the area. The purpose of generating the area is really because back behind all of this is the BroadStreet data engine. So we've talked about how the site is built on cards. A really big thing are our data cards and our map cards, and powering all of those is this BroadStreet data engine, which basically pulls data from our gigantic database of hundreds of indicators, and basically we'll be pulling it out just for Lancaster, Nebraska. If you wanted to compare two counties that were not exactly next to each other, you could do that too. If you wanted to compare a whole bunch of counties, you could do that too. But essentially what we're saying is that if for some reason the data that we're pulling out of our data engine is only at the zip code level or only at the city level, like once before the 500 cities data, then these are the cities that we'd be pulling from. Luckily, a lot of things are available at the county level, so we'll just push next from there. Okay, so now what's working behind the scenes is that for this template, we're going back into the BroadStreet data engine, and essentially it's generating a report using this template for Lancaster. All right, so right now what you'll immediately see is this story editor behind you, grayed out. And then it's asking if you want to see the finished storyboard. So a published storyboard essentially acts a little bit like a website in the sense that it can be shared with others. So for instance, if you're interested in sharing this at a meeting, you could either invite people just to look at it, or you can invite collaborators who can help you edit it. And we'll go into editing in just a second. So the infant mortality reports, although this is a little bit outside the scope to go too much detail into that, this is an amazing report actually written by Calais, and it talks about different aspects of not only protective and also risk factors for infant mortality, but also looks at infant mortality in different ways. Okay, so as you can see, all of these cards, you can interact with them. And these right now are data cards. So these longer cards are a little bit different than the story cards, the wizard cards, in the sense that they have interactive data. And also, if you click on them, you'll be able to see a bigger version. This bigger version can be shared and downloaded either for a PowerPoint or for, you can actually download it or share it directly to Twitter as well. So essentially it creates a high resolution PNG. But right now it's interactive. So, all right, so that's a data card. And you'll see that we have a lot of data cards here. Sometimes when I'm going through stories and I find something that I like, I do add it to my favorites so I can keep a nice running log of all of the favorite cards that I have. All right, so this is essentially a finished story. Now, a lot of times when people are going for grants, they use our templates. And so we actually have a lot of people using our food report, food banks and such, using our access report, and they just use the template. They don't edit it in any way. It is possible to edit the template if you're interested in creating a little bit of customization there. But a lot of people use just the template. They download the images and they use those in their grants. So already we're at a really great point, hopefully saving you probably the equivalent of 10 to 100 hours of chasing all this data around the internet and then putting it into a nice visual. It's already been done. Especially if you're covering a couple of different areas. Hopefully you find that this is a quick way of doing it. All right, so I did mention that it is editable. So I'm going to go back to essentially what is the editor for the stories. This is where we can edit it. So you can edit any of the words. You can also edit the image here. You can remove sections if you find that they're not applicable to you. And also you can shuffle cards around. Okay, the other thing that you can do is that if you're really digging one of the cards, I'm just going to refresh it there. Cards on shuffle mode. So if you're really liking one of the cards, you can save it to your favorites. You can also save it to another story. So I have a lot of other stories that I've run, but I can also save it to, let's see, I'm going to save it to here. I'm going to save it to that story. I've also saved it to my favorites. I can also download the image and I can also send it directly to Twitter. I've actually already enabled that for my account and it'll post it directly to Twitter, which is nice for campaigns. All right, I'm not going to post that right now though. Okay, so all of the cards essentially have these controls on them where you can save them and save them for later and move them to other stories. All right, so what does that look like if I'm looking at my favorites? So already you can see that I've saved these cards. I've also saved some wizard cards, some of those report cards that we talked about. So clicking on any of these at any time will essentially lead me into that wizard. All right, so that's just my favorites. You can see all of the stories that I've run previously, and then also any of the maps that I made in the map room. So that's the left navigation. So if ever you're trying to find something that you've made before in the past, that left navigation will get you there. And if you ever want to find the templates again, the BroadStreet home is where you go. All right, and if at any point in time you get lost, you can always throw on this help toggle and you'll see a little chat bot in the corner and you can ask a question. All right, so now let's talk about how to customize this at a little bit of a higher level now that we've gone over some of those basics. So each of the stories itself is customizable so that it can look in a way that represents the brand of your organization. I'm going to show you some examples of some customized reports that were customized essentially after running a template. All right, so the first example done by Lizzie Pearson is Healthy Montgomery. So this is a community in Maryland that was running their community health needs assessment. And I think they used the simple template here. I don't know if they edited it a ton. It looks like the template for the community health needs assessment, the community needs assessments. And then essentially what they did is they customized the image here and they customized the logo here. So now if they share it, it's nicely branded. Oh, and I think they changed the color of the links to match their brand. So as you can see, this is a really nice way to remove that BroadStreet branding and to make it represent your organization. The way in which you do that is essentially going into the editor. So from here, you could click edit. You should be able to see it if you're a collaborator on the story. I am a collaborator on the story. So what I would do is I would go into settings. I would go under layout and look, and I go under colors and brand. And that's when I would start to edit the colors. You can also edit the unique URL, so it's a little bit cleaner, and you can edit the logo as well. You can even edit the little favicon that appears in the tab there. All right, so that's one way to make it look really nice so that when you're sharing it in a meeting, They're like, wow, you must have spent forever on this. And you're like, sure, even though it only took a couple of minutes. All right, so I'm not going to change the colors in the brand right now, but really what I want to show you is if you're working with some other agencies that don't need all of the data or maybe need something that's a little bit more customized or maybe a little bit more streamlined, it is possible to start a story from scratch and to take some of those cards out of your favorites and essentially add them to the new story. I'm going to do the cooking show example by going to this story here, which was created. Oh, you can change the header color as well here. So you can see logo, new image, you can add banners, links, and new cards. Okay, so one cool thing about this is that I actually have a few copies of this one area because I actually ran this story from a custom template. I really want to go over custom templates, but it is a little bit of an advanced feature and I realize some people are a little bit new. So I want to just pause for a second to make sure everyone's doing all right for right now.
I'm good.
Okay, we're good.
I'm following, and I'm happy to take a look at the custom templates too, because I'm thinking about a few different things that our organization may or may not want to do. And I can't speak for all of us, but the better understanding I have, the better, better I could talk about it with my colleagues.
Okay, awesome. And I'm going to say that if any time you're like, I think we went over this during this, but I'm a little bit turned around, it's absolutely okay to reach out and we can help you with it. So I'm going to resume sharing here. All right, so this report was run using what's called a custom template. So what does that mean, a custom template? So I'm going to actually start from, you can start from an already run story. You can also start from scratch. Let's start from scratch just so you can see what that looks like. So right here, underneath templates, there is create a new story from scratch. Hopefully that's self-explanatory that it is a blank template. All right, I'm going to edit the story. If I were to view it, it'd be a little bit boring. So you can see that there's a section here. And so for instance, if I were to say something like, I can call the section anything I want. I'm just going to make sure it's saved. I can also add a new section above, maybe like a banner with an image. Sure. All right, so this is where I would be filling in the text. I'm just going to save it. And then let's see, I'm going to edit this. I'm going to select from my images here. Yeah, kind of, I like this one. All right, I'm going to save. Alrighty, so I'm just going to call it custom template. Now I know for myself that I have a lot of stories. So I'm actually going to start it with a number. And all right, sure, that's looking like it needs a few cards, but I'm going to save it from here. All right, so now I'm going to go back to my favorites where I've run some stories and I found some cards that I really like. And right now I'm going to start adding these to my blank template. All right, I'm going to push save to. All right, here it is. Save it. I'm going to save, I'm actually going to save 2 copies because there is a really interesting feature that I want to show you. Okay. I'm done with that. I'm going to go here now. And same thing. I'm just going to make sure that it goes into the story in the section that I want. All right. While I'm at it, I'm going to show you that you can also take wizard cards and you can add them. That's actually kind of cool because then when you share the storyboard, the published storyboard with other people, they can actually use that, that wizard right away. All right, so I think that's good for now. All right, Let's go back to that story. And I'm going to go back to the story that I just made. All right, so now you can see that this is essentially shareable now. I mean, it's not super beautiful, but at the same time, I could share the link and then we could share this in a meeting and go over a few things. Now it is editable still, so let's go back and edit it. And I want to show you that really cool feature that each of the data cards has. All right, so one of the reasons why I sometimes put multiple cards within the same story is because each one of our data cards and even our map cards do have what's called an area tag. So for instance, if you were administering a grant and you were really interested in comparing two different places, you can basically, when you're in the editor, you can actually click and change out the area tag. And if I wanted to change, for instance, to Asheville, then you'd be able to compare them side by side. So essentially, I'd already set up the area of Asheville, so it was in my saved areas. And now by changing that area tag, you can actually see two places and compare them. All right, for right now though, just for simplicity, I'm actually going to remove this card. All right, so I'm going to shuffle it so it looks just a little bit cleaner here. Okay. Alrighty, so now if I were to say, okay, this is actually all of the data that I want for this particular report, that's absolutely fine. Essentially, what I would do now is I would turn this into a template. That's actually really easy to do. All you do is go to settings. And if you are an editor who has this permission, so you do have to be an editor on the story, all you've got to do is save it as a template. And that will essentially launch it to my main page. Let's see if it ended up there. Oh, there it is. Okay, so now if I wanted to, this is quite meta, but I can actually save this card. I can actually save this card back to the story. I know it's like a brain explosion, but theoretically now anyone who runs the story can share it and then they can also run the story. But let's see what that looks like. Okay, so I'm going to run this. I'm going to use a saved area, 2 zips in Wisconsin. Next. And now I'm going to view it. And this story now is not for Lancaster, but it's actually for my region. It's for Wisconsin region. So now I've run this and I can actually compare side by side of what's going on in a couple of different places using essentially the same data cards. And now if I share this, then yeah, then we can share the meeting and look. All right, I'm going to pause there. We only got 2 minutes left, and I want to be sure that there's plenty of time if somebody has some questions.